Most men will spend their entire lives confused about women. They'll follow every piece of polite advice. Be attentive, be soft, be agreeable, send the good morning texts, buy the gifts, suppress their anger, smile through disrespect, and still they lose. 500 years ago, in exile, stripped of status and power, a man named Niccolò Machiavelli wrote truths so unsettling that rulers feared them. His book, The Prince, wasn't about romance. It was about power. And power, whether in politics or relationships, follows the same laws. This is not about blaming women. This is not about resentment. This is about understanding human nature without illusions. If you're looking for comforting lies, this isn't for you. If you want clarity, stay. The weakness hidden inside niceness. When people hear strength, they imagine aggression. When they hear kindness, they imagine virtue. But those two qualities are not opposites. In fact, real strength is what gives kindness value. Without strength, niceness often becomes something else entirely, fear dressed up as morality. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli observed that leaders who tried to please everyone rarely kept their power. They avoided conflict. They softened decisions. They hoped goodwill would protect them. It didn't, because goodwill without firmness invites testing, and testing reveals weakness. Translate that into relationships. Many men believe that constant agreement, constant availability, and constant emotional reassurance will secure affection. So they silence their opinions. They tolerate behavior that bothers them. They overgive time, energy, and validation. They become endlessly accommodating. On the surface, this looks generous. Underneath, it often comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of losing approval. But human psychology doesn't reward fear. It senses it. When someone has no boundaries, when they never disagree, when they never assert their own preferences, something subtle shifts in the dynamic. There is no tension, no polarity, no sense of solidity. The relationship begins to feel unanchored, and without anchoring, respect quietly erodes. Respect is not built on constant agreement. It is built on consistency and boundaries. A person who calmly says, "I don't see it that way," and stands by it without hostility, communicates stability. They are not reactive, but they are not malleable either. That balance creates trust, not because it is dominant, but because it is predictable. Strength is predictable. Weakness is unstable. Machiavelli's famous line about it being safer to be feared than loved is often misunderstood. He was not glorifying cruelty. He was describing a hierarchy. Affection without respect collapses, but respect can exist even when affection fluctuates. In personal relationships, the lesson is similar. If someone likes you but does not respect you, attraction fades. If they respect you, affection has space to grow. The problem is that many confuse compliance with kindness. True kindness is a choice made from power. It is the ability to be generous because you are not afraid. It is the ability to forgive without becoming a doormat. It is the ability to give without needing something in return. Fear-based niceness, on the other hand, is transactional. It silently expects reward. If I am good enough, if I give enough, if I sacrifice enough, I will be chosen. That energy feels heavy. It feels dependent, and dependence shifts the balance of any connection. Throughout history, survival favored those who could hold ground under pressure. Even in modern life, that instinct remains. Emotional steadiness signals security. Security signals safety. And safety builds attraction far more reliably than endless approval seeking. So the first lesson is not to become harsh. It is to become solid. Develop opinions and stand by them calmly. Set boundaries and enforce them respectfully. Be generous but not self-erasing. Kindness is powerful when it comes from choice. It is fragile when it comes from fear. If you remove fear from your behavior, what remains is strength. And when strength becomes your baseline, kindness transforms from strategy into character. That difference changes how people experience you and how they respond. The currency of inner power. Most people misunderstand power. They think it is status, money, physical dominance, or social influence. Those things can amplify attraction, but they are not its foundation. The deeper currency, the one that quietly determines how others respond to you, is emotional self-command. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli described leaders who survived chaos not because they were the strongest in brute force, but because they were the most composed when pressure rose. Wars, betrayals, shifting alliances, instability was constant. The ruler who panicked lost authority. The ruler who remained steady gained it. Relationships operate under similar psychological laws. Conflict happens, misunderstandings happen, distance happens, emotions fluctuate. The question is never whether tension will appear. The question is how you respond when it does. An emotionally undisciplined person reacts instantly. They defend too quickly. They argue to win rather than understand. They spiral into insecurity at the first sign of ambiguity. Their mood becomes dependent on external reassurance. An emotionally disciplined person pauses. They do not suppress emotion. They regulate it. They feel anger without exploding. They feel jealousy without accusing. They feel uncertainty without collapsing into neediness. That internal stability communicates something powerful. I am not ruled by my impulses. And that is attractive on a deep level because it signals reliability. Machiavelli wrote that people judge more by what they see than what they feel. Perception shapes reality. If you appear reactive and easily shaken, others instinctively treat you as unstable. If you appear grounded and measured, they treat you as solid, even if internally you are still processing. This does not mean pretending, it means training. Self-control is built deliberately. It is developed through discipline in small moments, choosing silence instead of immediate reaction, choosing reflection instead of retaliation, choosing calm inquiry instead of accusation. When someone senses that you cannot be easily provoked, they adjust their behavior around you, not out of fear, but out of recognition. You are steady terrain, not shifting sand. There is also a paradox here. The more someone depends on validation, the less they receive it freely. The more someone demands reassurance, the less reassuring they appear. But when someone does not need constant confirmation, reassurance flows toward them naturally. Need repels, stability attracts. In practical terms, this means learning to tolerate uncertainty. Not every delayed text is rejection. Not every disagreement is abandonment. Not every mood shift is a threat. When you stop catastrophizing normal fluctuations, you stop overreacting. And when you stop overreacting, you become easier to connect with. Emotional discipline also protects dignity. When you respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively, you avoid saying things you regret. You avoid escalating minor issues into major fractures. You create space for resolution instead of destruction. Power, then, is not about controlling others. It is about mastering your internal environment. Can you stay composed when someone challenges you? Can you hold your center when emotions rise? Can you walk away from a heated exchange rather than feeding it? Those abilities create presence. Presence is quiet authority. It does not shout, it does not chase, it does not beg to be recognized. It simply exists, stable, calm, self-contained, and people feel it. When your internal world is ordered, your external interactions become smoother. When your reactions are measured, your words carry more weight. When your emotions are guided rather than unleashed, your character becomes trustworthy. That is the real currency of attraction. Not dominance over someone else, but dominance over yourself. The gravity of purpose. Attraction rarely grows around emptiness. It grows around direction. One of the strongest patterns visible in The Prince is that leaders who commanded loyalty were never drifting. Niccolò Machiavelli repeatedly highlighted focus, preparation, and forward movement. The effective ruler was not reactive to every opinion around him. He moved according to a larger aim. Purpose creates gravity. In relationships, this principle appears in subtle but powerful ways. A person who is building something, a career, a craft, a body, a discipline, a vision, radiates momentum. Their time has structure, Their energy has direction. Their identity is not suspended in waiting. Contrast that with someone who makes the relationship their entire center of meaning. When a person has no independent mission, they often shift all emotional weight onto their partner. Every text carries urgency. Every disagreement feels catastrophic. Every moment apart feels like loss. The connection becomes the only source of identity and stability. That pressure is heavy. No one wants to feel responsible for another adult's entire sense of purpose. It creates imbalance. It turns affection into obligation, and obligation slowly erodes attraction. Purpose, on the other hand, changes the dynamic completely. When you wake up with something meaningful to pursue, your interactions become choices rather than necessities. You spend time together because you want to, not because you have nothing else. That subtle difference transforms the emotional tone of the relationship. Choice feels empowering. Dependence feels suffocating. A person with direction is less likely to overanalyze minor issues because their life is not shrinking around a single connection. They have multiple sources of fulfillment. Work, growth, health, learning, contribution, these become pillars supporting their identity. This does not mean neglect, it means balance. When your world is expansive, you bring richness into the relationship. Conversations deepen because you are evolving. Energy feels dynamic because you are progressing. Stability increases because your happiness is not tied to a single variable. Machiavelli emphasized preparation in times of peace so that chaos would not destroy a ruler when it arrived. In personal life, purpose functions similarly. When you are actively developing yourself before crisis appears, you are less shaken when challenges come. Purpose also builds quiet confidence. Confidence is not loudness or bravado. It is the internal knowledge that your life is moving somewhere meaningful. When someone senses that you are on a path, not drifting, they feel that momentum. They feel that they are joining something already alive, not trying to animate something dormant. That energy is magnetic. There is another layer here. When you prioritize growth, you unconsciously raise your standards. You become less willing to tolerate disrespect or chaos because it interferes with your direction. Boundaries become natural, not forced. You protect your time because it is valuable. You protect your focus because it matters. And protecting your direction signals self-worth. The irony is this. When you stop making attraction the central pursuit, you often become more attractive. When you stop structuring your day around someone else's responses, you become more compelling. When your mission matters deeply to you, your presence becomes heavier in a good way. People feel gravity. They feel when someone is anchored in something larger than temporary emotion. So the lesson is simple but demanding. Build something meaningful. Move toward a clear aim. Let relationships complement your mission, not replace it. When your life has direction, your energy changes, your conversations change, your posture changes, even your silence changes, because purpose creates gravity, and gravity draws others in without force. The discipline of mystery. Not everything valuable needs to be revealed immediately. In politics, strategy requires timing. In relationships, so does depth. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli advised rulers to be measured in what they disclose. A leader who exposed every intention, every weakness, every calculation too quickly lost leverage. Information, when paced correctly, preserved influence. The same psychological principle applies to human connection. Modern culture often confuses instant transparency with authenticity. People are told to lay everything on the table immediately. Feelings, insecurities, past wounds, long-term expectations. While vulnerability is powerful in the right context, premature emotional exposure can destabilize attraction. Connection thrives on gradual discovery. When someone reveals their entire emotional world within days, there is no unfolding, no curiosity, no anticipation. Everything becomes immediately known. And what is fully known too quickly often loses intrigue. Mystery is not deception, it is pacing. There is a natural rhythm to deepening intimacy. Trust expands in layers. Shared experiences build context. Emotional safety grows through consistency. When disclosure matches that rhythm, it strengthens connection. When it races ahead of it, it overwhelms. Consider how humans value effort. We appreciate what we invest energy into understanding. When someone slowly reveals aspects of their personality, ambitions, fears, philosophies, each conversation feels like discovery. That discovery keeps attention engaged. It creates emotional momentum. But when someone overshares early on, especially from anxiety, it can communicate hidden instability. It may signal, "I need you to validate all of this immediately." That urgency creates pressure rather than curiosity. Machiavelli understood that unpredictability sustains attention, not chaos, but depth that cannot be fully mapped in a single interaction. In relationships, predictability in values and character builds safety, but complete predictability in personality can feel flat. A person who holds layers, who shares thoughtfully rather than compulsively, feels multidimensional. That multidimensionality creates intrigue. This does not mean playing games. It does not mean withholding affection to manipulate. It means allowing the connection to evolve naturally rather than forcing emotional intensity prematurely. There is also strength in silence. Not every thought needs immediate expression. Not every insecurity needs instant reassurance. When you can hold your internal experiences calmly instead of broadcasting them impulsively, you demonstrate emotional containment. That containment communicates stability. Stability invites trust. Gradual revelation also protects dignity. Early in any connection, you are still evaluating compatibility. Sharing your deepest vulnerabilities before trust is established can create imbalance. It may attach you emotionally before mutual commitment exists. Pacing prevents that imbalance. When you reveal yourself layer by layer, you maintain equilibrium. Both people invest progressively. Both people earn deeper access over time. That reciprocity strengthens respect. Attention follows mystery. When someone cannot fully predict your reactions but can trust your character, they remain engaged. They listen more carefully. They observe more closely. They think about you between conversations. That attention nourishes attraction. So the discipline of mystery is simple. Speak honestly, but not excessively. Share depth, but in stages. Allow curiosity rather than eliminating it instantly. Let connection breathe. True confidence does not rush intimacy, it allows it to unfold. When you master pacing, you create space for intrigue, respect, and emotional balance to develop naturally. And natural development is far more durable than intensity forced too soon. Why boldness attracts. Many people struggle to understand why certain individuals seem magnetic despite flaws, unpredictability, or even emotional unavailability. Machiavelli observed this dynamic repeatedly, not in dating but in leadership. The prince details how fortune favors boldness, how decisive action can alter outcomes, and how hesitation leads to missed opportunity. Boldness in life signals confidence. Boldness in relationship signals security. It shows that you are willing to act according to your principles, to take risks, and to pursue objectives without waiting for permission or external validation. That decisiveness is compelling. It communicates that you are not bound by fear. You are not trapped in doubt. You are a person who moves forward regardless of uncertainty. Contrast this with caution or hesitation. Waiting for the perfect moment, asking for signs of approval, overanalyzing every interaction. These behaviors communicate scarcity and insecurity. People subconsciously sense that the cautious individual's life lacks momentum. They sense that emotional dependence dictates decisions, that tension creates unease. Attraction diminishes because stability is absent. In relationships, boldness is not about recklessness. It is not about manipulation or dominance. It is about initiative, initiating plans, proposing ideas, expressing thoughts clearly, and acting on them. The bold individual does not avoid discomfort, they walk toward it. When conflicts arise, they engage thoughtfully rather than retreating. When opportunities appear, they seize them rather than waiting indefinitely. Women, like all humans, are drawn to decisiveness because it represents capability. Decisive behavior signals that someone can manage challenges, navigate complexity, and protect their life's direction. In evolutionary terms, decisiveness equated with competence, the ability to respond effectively under pressure. In modern terms, decisiveness still conveys that the individual can handle adversity without losing composure. Boldness also conveys authenticity. A person who acts intentionally rather than reactively demonstrates internal alignment. Their life has coherence. Their choices are deliberate. That coherence is psychologically appealing because it signals a predictable, reliable, and capable character, someone with whom a partnership or connection can flourish. The paradox is this: moving decisively sometimes brings failure. Acting without certainty can lead to mistakes, yet the mistake made boldly is more attractive than the inaction caused by fear. Movement demonstrates courage. Courage attracts attention, respect, and emotional engagement. Boldness in relationships manifests in several ways: suggesting activities without hesitation, clearly communicating boundaries, expressing interest without overcomplication, and taking initiative to solve problems rather than avoiding them. These actions signal that your life is active and purposeful, not reactive and dependent. Ultimately, boldness aligns with self-respect. It requires knowing your own value enough to act rather than wait, to take responsibility rather than defer, and to prioritize meaningful outcomes over fear of temporary discomfort. When practiced consistently, boldness cultivates trust, inspires intrigue, and strengthens the perception of stability. The key insight from Machiavellian principles is this: fortune and attention favor those who act with purpose. Hesitation limits opportunity. Boldness creates momentum. In attraction, momentum communicates security, capability, and reliability, qualities that transcend superficial traits like looks or charm. The lesson is clear: stop waiting for permission to live fully. Stop calculating excessively to avoid minor errors. Act, decide, move. Your decisiveness is magnetic, not because you are perfect, but because you are unafraid to engage life on your own terms, the ultimate leverage. Nothing shifts power dynamics like the ability to leave. Machiavelli believed a ruler should never depend so heavily on an alliance that he becomes trapped by it. The same applies to relationships. When a man tolerates disrespect because he fears loss, he communicates scarcity, and scarcity lowers perceived value. But when a man calmly states boundaries and enforces them, something changes. He demonstrates self-respect. And self-respect is deeply attractive. This does not mean threatening to leave over minor issues. It means building a life so full that staying is a choice, not survival. The man willing to lose the relationship is often the one who keeps it, because his love is chosen, not needed. If you read Machiavelli carefully, one pattern appears again and again. Leaders fall because of internal weakness, insecurity, arrogance, dependence, fear. They collapse from within. And so do men. The real work is not mastering women, it is mastering yourself. Emotional discipline, purpose, physical and mental development, self-awareness. Tactics fade. Transformation remains. A man who has faced his own fear no longer radiates need. He radiates stability. And stability feels safe. In the end, women want what all humans want: strength without cruelty, depth without chaos, presence without suffocation, purpose without arrogance. Machiavelli studied power in kingdoms, but the deepest power he revealed was self-command. Control yourself, and you control your world. Stop asking what women want. Start asking who you need to become, because once you build that man, you won't need to chase. You will simply attract.